Looks like there's still a chance we might get to see John Carter too, and this time, we could even get some cool new characters and storylines that didn't make it into the first one. Like the epic chess match from the Chesman of Mars, or Vordai turning into a monster in Synthetic Men of Mars, plus a bunch of other wild stuff. So stick with us as we dive into everything we know so far about John Carter 2. If you've ever watched John Carter from 2012, you might already know it was originally planned as the first chapter of a full movie trilogy. The story follows John Carter, a Civil War veteran who somehow ends up on Mars, called Barsoom by its inhabitants. Once there, he realizes Mars' lower gravity gives him the ability to make giant leaps across the landscape, and he quickly finds himself in the middle of an interplanetary conflict involving strange alien creatures and different Martian tribes. Although the film had its own set of fans, the trilogy never materialized, and that's a shame because the original Edgar Rice Burroughs novels have enough wild, imaginative material to easily fuel at least 2 more sequels. Not only that, but the movie even ended on a cliffhanger, setting up what could have been a much larger story. Director Andrew Stanton had plans for a complete trilogy, and he even hinted at what the next 2 movies would have looked like. But unfortunately, despite all the potential and source material, those sequels were shelved. Disney pulled the plug, and for years, John Carter was remembered more for being a box office disappointment than a sci-fi franchise with promise. Still, it's worth diving into what those sequels could have been, especially since there have been whispers that Disney might be reconsidering the franchise. And if they do bring it back, there's a bunch of fascinating storylines and characters they could finally bring to life, some of which were originally meant for John Carter 2 and 3. So what would John Carter 2 have looked like? According to Andrew Stanton, the sequel was going to be called Gods of Mars. Just like the first film began with some narration, this one would have kicked off with Giacchino, played by Lynn Collins, telling the story of the first film to her son, Carthrus. She believes John Carter is lost forever and that her son will grow up never knowing his father. But then things take a dark turn. Tardos Mors, played by Ciarán Hinds, enters the scene and offers to take Carthrus to bed, only it's not really him. He's been replaced by Matai Shong, the shape-shifting villain played by Mark Strong. Matai kidnaps the boy and vanishes. That's when the opening credits would have rolled, picking up exactly where the first film left off. John Carter's dramatic return to Mars after being gone for years. Carter arrives to discover that Dja has gone on a desperate journey down the sacred river, hoping it will somehow lead her to their missing son. Determined to help, Carter teams up with Tars Tarkas, the Thark warrior from the first movie, and begins following the same path. Along the way, they uncover a hidden underground city ruled by the Firstborn, a powerful race that has secretly controlled Mars' natural resources since the beginning. The twist? The Firstborn worship a deity named Goddess Isis, who, as it turns out, is just another disguise used by Matai Shong. Carter figures this out and sets out to expose the deception, rescue his son, and reunite his family. But things get more intense when Carter finds out his son has been genetically altered by Matai into a superhuman adult warrior. In a heart-wrenching moment, he nearly kills his own child in battle, not realizing who he's fighting. Thankfully, the truth comes out in time, and the family is reunited. Together, with the help of the Red, Green, and Firstborn races, they rise up against the manipulative Therns and finally defeat them. Now, as if that wasn't enough of a story, John Carter 3, titled Warlord of Mars, would have pushed things even further. This final chapter was meant to show John Carter racing against time to stop the Therns from wiping out the entire planet. In order to buy themselves more time, the Therns disguised themselves as the leaders of various Martian tribes and used these false identities to stir up war between them. Meanwhile, Dja creates a device that can detect the Therns no matter what form they take. But the Therns manage to stay one step ahead. They destroy her invention. Worse, they even succeed in killing John Carter, or at least they think they do. In a twist, the version of Carter they killed turns out to be a decoy. The real John Carter wakes up back on Earth. While there, he gets help from his old friend Edgar, who uses his shotgun to fend off Thern agents trying to keep Carter from returning to Mars. With Edgar's help, Carter finds a way back. Back on Barsoom, As war brews and the planet teeters on the edge of destruction, Carter carries the last surviving Thurn detector to the highest point on the planet, following the trail that leads him straight to Matai Shan. In their final confrontation, Carter defeats him once and for all, and finally claims the title of Warlord of Mars. Now, even though none of these sequels were made, there have been some recent rumors that Disney might be looking at John Carter again, possibly rebooting or continuing the story in a fresh way. And if that happens, there's a ton of great content from the books that never made it into the original film trilogy, but easily could show up in future installments. One exciting option would be adapting the Chesman of Mars. This book isn't even about John Carter himself, but instead follows his daughter, Tara of Helium, and her romantic interest, Gain of Gathal. The highlight of the story is a massive, human-sized game of chess, where the pieces are actual people who fight to the death for control of each square. It's not just brutal, it's genius. It puts Gain's intellect to the test, rather than just his strength, and sets the stage for a larger rebellion against their captors, the Kaldanes. Burroughs even named the entire book after that one sequence, which shows how important it was. The idea of living chess pieces battling it out in a Colosseum-like arena. That would be an incredible visual for the big screen. But that's not all. Another great option for a movie would be Synthetic Men of Mars. This time, the main character isn't John Carter. It's Vordai, one of Carter's loyal companions. The story has him tagging along on a mission that leads them to Rasthavas, a mad scientist from a previous book who's known for body-swapping experiments. Unfortunately for Vordai, Rasthavas captures him and performs a horrifying surgery that places his brain into a monstrous, grotesque body. Now stuck in a terrifying new form, Vordai must protect his original body from harm while navigating Rasthavas' bizarre lab. One of the lab's horrors is a blob-like creature that just keeps growing and threatens to consume everything around it. And if that wasn't enough, Vordai also has to deal with the added challenge of trying to woo his love interest, while stuck in his monstrous new form. It's an eerie, exciting twist on the typical Burroughs romance, and it adds a bunch of emotional weight and dark humor to the usual swashbuckling adventure. Honestly, seeing that adapted into a movie would be brilliant. So, even though John Carter didn't quite land the way Disney had hoped back in 2012, the franchise itself still holds a ton of untapped potential. Between the dramatic rescue missions, shape-shifting villains, alien civil wars, and chess matches where the stakes are literally life and death, the Barsoom saga has everything a great sci-fi fantasy story needs. If Disney does decide to revisit this world, there's already a rich foundation to build on, and fans, both new and old, would definitely have something to get excited about. And that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.